Let me show you. This is Instagram story. It's an Instagram story. She said, quote, cheating, had me around your whole family playing house, got cold feet, holding you down through all your horrible mood swings and treatment towards me during your basketball season. Now you don't know if you can be monogamous? Question marks.
Y'all, this didn't just go left. This exploded overnight. It looks like one IG story just flipped everything, because suddenly Megan Thee Stallion is out here hinting at cheating, mood swings, and a relationship that was never as solid as it looked, and within minutes, the entire internet picked side. Insiders are saying this wasn't just a breakup, this was a public exposure. One post, one statement, and now Klay Thompson is trending for all the wrong reasons, while staying completely silent. No response.no denial.no damage control. And just when people thought the narrative was locked in, boom, Stephen A. Smith steps in and flips the whole story. Because instead of defending Megan, he asked one question that changed everything. Why is this public? And then he went even further. Is it always the man's fault? Now the room goes quiet. Because what started as a cheating story is now turning into something way more uncomfortable. Questions are being raised, narratives are shifting, and suddenly, the victim versus villain line isn't so clear anymore. And here's where it gets dangerous. Because while Megan is speaking, Klay is saying nothing. No interviews.no statements, just silence. And sometimes, silence says more than anything else. So what really happened behind closed doors? Because this doesn't feel like a normal breakup anymore. This feels like the beginning of something way messier.
I'm having this episode on YouTube because I'm asking, why is she telling his business? See, that's where I want the ladies to listen. I'm sick and tired of what's going on in this world. I'm not saying whatever she felt was wrong. I don't know what happened in their relationship. Don't want to know. Ain't none of my damn business. Ain't none of y'all's either.
It looks like everything started moving way too fast, because the moment that story went live, the entire narrative around Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson stopped being private and turned into a full-blown public spectacle. Insiders are saying this wasn't planned, this wasn't controlled, this was emotional. One IG story, and suddenly the world is hearing about cheating, tension, and a relationship that allegedly wasn't as stable as it looked from the outside. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because before that post, nobody really knew anything. No leaks.no drama.no public issues. Everything looked calm, almost perfect, and then it flipped. Reports suggest Megan didn't just walk away quietly. She made a statement. A strong one. One that immediately shifted perception and forced people to pick sides.
Then she comes out with a statement on page 6. I've made the decision. She's far more composed now. No derogatory names or anything like that. She's far more composed now. This is a statement to page 6. Quote, I've made the decision to end my relationship with Klay. Trust, fidelity, and respect are non-negotiable for me in a relationship. And when those values are compromised, there's no real path forward.
And just like that, what could have been a silent breakup turned into a public narrative. Now people aren't just watching, they're analyzing. Because it looks like there are two completely different energies at play here. On one side, emotion, expression, and exposure. On the other, silence. And that silence, it's starting to feel louder than anything else. Because while Megan is explaining her side, Klay Thompson is doing absolutely nothing. No response.no clarification.no reaction. And insiders are saying that's exactly what's making this situation even more intense. Because when one person speaks and the other doesn't, the story starts writing itself. But here's where things take another turn. Because according to multiple sources, this wasn't just about cheating. It looks like there were deeper issues, tension during the season, emotional distance, and moments that allegedly built up over time. And when that IG story dropped, it didn't just expose a breakup. It exposed a timeline, a pattern, a version of events that instantly painted a picture, but maybe not the full one. Now the internet is doing what it always does, connecting dots. People are revisiting old clips, old appearances, old moments that didn't mean much before, but now suddenly feel different. And the more people look, the more questions start showing up. Because if things were this bad, why did it look so good? And if everything was fine, what actually triggered this sudden explosion? That's where things get complicated. Because right when the public started leaning one way, another voice entered the conversation. And not just any voice. A voice that doesn't follow narratives, it challenges them. A voice that doesn't react emotionally, it breaks things down. And suddenly the focus shifted, not just on what happened, but on how it was revealed.
Was not Megan the Stallion. Oh, I love that name for her. I really do. But I digress. My point is, it was not her shining moment.
Now the conversation isn't just about what Megan the Stallion said. It's about why she said it publicly. Because insiders are now questioning the timing. Why now? Why like this? Why in a way that instantly puts everything on display? And that's where the narrative starts to crack. Because what initially looked like a clear situation is now starting to feel layered. Some are saying she spoke her truth. Others are saying there's more we're not hearing. And then there's the silence. Still no response from Klay Thompson, which raises another question. Is he staying quiet because there's nothing to say? Or because saying something would make things worse? Because in situations like this, silence can protect you or expose you. And right now, nobody knows which one this is. But one thing is clear. This isn't just a breakup story anymore. This is a narrative battle, and we've only heard one side so far. It looks like the moment that second wave hit, everything changed again, because now this wasn't just about what was said, it was about how it was handled. Insiders are saying this is where the narrative really started to fracture. Because once the emotional reaction settled, people started asking a different question. Not what happened, but why was it handled like this? And that's when Stephen A. Smith stepped in and shifted the entire conversation. Not with sympathy, not with outrage, but with scrutiny. Suddenly, the focus wasn't just on Megan the Stallion or Klay Thompson anymore. It was on the decision to go public. Because from what sources are suggesting, this could have stayed private. Handled quietly, resolved behind the scenes, left without headlines. But instead, it became content. And that's where the tension builds. Because once something becomes public, it stops being personal. It becomes narrative. And narratives don't always tell the full story.
How come you couldn't just break up and go on your merry way? How come you couldn't just say, we had our time together, but I'm back being single again. Klay Thompson and I are no longer together, and leave it at that. Why we got to dog the brother out?
Now the conversation gets sharper. Because what that moment did was force people to rethink everything they just accepted. It introduced doubt. It introduced perspective. And more importantly, it introduced a possibility people weren't considering before. What if this isn't as one-sided as it looks? Because insiders are now pointing out something interesting. Before that IG story, there was no chaos attached to Klay Thompson. No public accusations no messy headlines no visible conflict. And now, overnight, everything is attached to his name. Which raises a difficult question. Did the situation change? Or did the narrative change? Because those are not the same thing. And right when people start leaning into that thought, another moment hits. Another statement, another shift.
What if Klay said it was you? What if Klay said that you was out there getting your freak on? He didn't do nothing, you did. Is it really beyond the pale? Is that how we gonna act, ladies and gentlemen?
And this is where it gets uncomfortable. Because now, responsibility enters the conversation. Not blame. Responsibility. The kind of question people usually avoid suddenly becomes the center of attention. Because if relationships are complex, if emotions are layered, if timing matters, then can one side really tell the full story alone? And that's the tension building right now. Because the internet already chose a side. But now, that side is being questioned. And when that happens, things get messy. Because people don't like reversing opinions. They don't like admitting they reacted too fast. And yet, that's exactly what this situation is forcing. Now you've got two narratives running at the same time. One says, she spoke her truth. The other says, there's more we're not hearing. And sitting right in the middle of that clash is silence. Still no response from Klay Thompson. And according to insiders, that silence is no longer neutral. It's strategic. Because the longer he says nothing, the more the conversation shifts away from reaction and toward reflection. People start questioning timelines, motives, intentions. And suddenly, what looked like a clear situation feels incomplete. Because here's what's starting to surface now. Timing doesn't just expose actions, it exposes decisions. And the decision to go public the way it did may have triggered something bigger than expected. Because instead of ending the story, it opened multiple versions of it. And now the audience is stuck between them, trying to figure out what's real, what's emotional, and what's being left out. And that's when a simple breakup turns into something far more complicated. Because once doubt enters the narrative, it doesn't leave quietly. It spreads. And right now, it's spreading fast. It looks like this is the point where the story stops feeling one-directional and starts turning into something a lot more uncomfortable. Because now, the conversation isn't just about what happened. It's about who's accountable and how much. Insiders are saying this is where the narrative really splits in half. On one side, you still have people standing firmly behind Megan the Stallion, believing she simply spoke her truth. But on the other side, there's a growing group asking a different kind of question. What if there's more to this story than what was said publicly? And that's when the tone of the discussion shifts again. Because once accountability enters the conversation, things get personal.
Could it be that you got comfortable? Could it be that complacency kicked in? Monotony and normalcy kicked in? And the things that he was doing to step his game up because he got to, because y'all don't tolerate that. You're ladies. This is Stephen A. you talking to, baby.
Now suddenly, the spotlight isn't just on Klay Thompson anymore. It's on both sides. Because people are starting to revisit everything. The timeline, the public appearances, the energy between them before everything collapsed. And what they're noticing now is different. Moments that once looked normal now feel questionable. Interactions that seemed harmless now look layered. And insiders are quietly suggesting something that wasn't part of the original narrative. That maybe, just maybe, this situation wasn't as one-sided as it first appeared. And that idea, it's spreading. Because the more people analyze, the more they realize how little they actually know. No full timeline, no full context, no confirmation from both sides. Just one version and a lot of silence. And that silence is still coming from Klay Thompson. But now, it's being interpreted differently. At first, it looked like avoidance. Now, it looks calculated. Because according to sources, staying quiet in a situation like this does something powerful. It lets the noise burn itself out. It lets the narrative overextend. And eventually, it creates space for doubt to grow. And right now, doubt is everywhere. Because if everything was exactly how it was presented, then why are so many questions still unanswered? Why does the timeline feel incomplete? Why does the reaction feel bigger than the explanation? And more importantly, why does it feel like we're only seeing part of the picture? That's where the tension peaks. Because once people start questioning the narrative, they don't just question one detail, they question everything. And now, even the way this was handled publicly is under scrutiny.
Chill. Because real dudes out there, real men that got shit going on, that's living life well, successful, ambitious, hungry, the last thing we want is a woman in our life who will tell our business the second stuff goes wrong. It's automatic cancellation.
And that moment, it changes the stakes completely. Because now, this isn't just about a breakup. It's about perception, image, reputation, future. Because insiders are pointing out something that's hard to ignore. In situations like this, how you tell the story can matter just as much as the story itself. And once something is said publicly, it can't be taken back. It lives online. It shapes opinions. It influences how you see moving forward. And that's where things get even more serious. Because now people aren't just asking what happened between Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson. They're asking what this means long-term. For both of them. Because narratives stick. And in today's culture, perception can define reality. Now you've got a situation where one side spoke first, the other stayed silent, and the public filled in the gaps. But what happens if those gaps weren't accurate? What happens if the full story never actually comes out? Because right now, there's no closure. No confirmation. No final version. Just layers of speculation. And a narrative that keeps evolving. And that's what makes this whole situation different. Because this isn't ending. It's transforming. From a breakup, to a debate, to full-blown narrative war. And in a narrative war, truth doesn't always win. Sometimes, the loudest version does. It looks like this story still isn't settled, and that might be the most important detail of all. Because insiders are saying what we've seen so far may only be one version, not the full picture. One side spoke first, one side stayed silent, and the internet filled in everything in between. Now the narrative feels locked, but is it actually true? Because timing matters, presentation matters, and once something goes public, it starts shaping reality, whether it's complete or not. And right now, the gaps are still there. No full timeline. No confirmed details from both sides. No clear ending. Just reactions, assumptions, and a story that keeps evolving every time new eyes look at it. And that's where things get dangerous. Because what started as a breakup turned into a narrative war. And in situations like this, perception doesn't just follow the story, it becomes the story. Some are saying Megan Thee Stallion controlled the narrative first. Others believe Klay Thompson is controlling it by saying nothing at all. And then there are those watching closely, waiting for something else to drop. Because stories like this rarely end quietly. They either fade or they escalate again. And based on how fast everything flipped the first time, insiders aren't ruling out another twist. So now the question isn't just what happened, it's what we're not being told. Because if this is only part of the truth, then the rest of it, it's still coming. And when it does, it could change everything. So tell me this, are you believing the narrative? Or are you waiting for the full story?